Running 101.
Running 101.
Running 101. Hello everyone, I'm Nance and welcome to another episode of Running 101. Wishing you all well as always, and a very belated Happy New Year to you all. That's right, this is the first of 2026. So let's start with a bit of an update for 2026 so far. I ran the Winter 10 Cancer Research Winter 10K in February. It was a cold, wet morning, and the word sluggish doesn't even cover the state. I and, of course, many other runners were in at 9 a.m. that Sunday morning. I mean, just if I wanted to paint a picture, which isn't that great, just imagine you're drenched, soaked all the way to your socks before you even get started, and I'm sure you know exactly how awful that can feel. How I was able to keep my time consistent with the last 3 years was quite a surprise for me, but of course I was humbled to take that away. So as I mentioned not long ago, this year, 2026, consistency and more strength work is what I'm after. I was actually recently asked about how I factor in a stretch before I go for a run, and I have to share that you don't really have to stretch just before you go for a run. What you need to do is make the strength training and the stretch part of your regular routine, and that could literally be 5 to 10 minutes every other day or a day before your run, regardless of what distance you're doing. And as long as you make that part of your regular routine, that gets consistent, and that's all the body needs to support you for your best. Moving on, today we have with us an all-rounder. Their early years with cross country, also including 800 meters in athletics when competing in and with schools. Someone who no doubt thrives in staying active, as their journey has also consisted of playing rugby and strength training over the years. Picking up running again, like many, including myself, in 2020. They started with distances like 2.5Ks to 5Ks before taking things further and eventually running a half marathon with an impressive PB of 1:28, which is pretty amazing, I would say. Over the years, still thriving while founding, building, and being involved in the day-to-day running, pun intended there, of Camp Kaizen. George, welcome to Running 101.
Hey Nads, thanks for the great introduction. Thanks for having me on the podcast today. It's really great to be here.
Good stuff. It's thanks so much for putting some time aside, and again, appreciate you coming forward, George. Looks quite exciting. Let's get started. How have things been for you lately? And tell us a bit about how 2026 has been treating you so far.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a crazy start to the year. Feels weird that we're only at the start of April. So I've been very, very full on with sort of organizing all things to do with my the business that I run, which we'll get into, I'm sure, a little bit later.
Sure.
But in terms of sort of like my strength, fitness goals and how I've started the year, I've kind of just been building a lot of like strength and fitness foundations to begin with. That's how I always like to start the year. So a lot of cross training. I've been training and competing in quite a few HYROXs. I've done the Manchester HYROX in January. I did the Glasgow HYROX in March, both of which were really enjoyable events and kept my training really balanced. So I've been doing lots of running, lots of lifting, and then lots of sort of like off-feet conditioning work as well. So that's been a really fun start to the year. But as we look ahead, I'm now basically setting my sights on the Windermere Marathon in the Lake District on the 14th of June. So my training is going to start to be a little bit more focused on that longer distance stuff. Obviously, while keeping things as sort of like hybrid as possible with the strength stuff and not neglecting that, because as we know, that's so important to running, as you said there.
Because you touched on it a bit earlier than planned, George. How does that training differ to the training that you already have in place for HYROX?
Yeah, so the HYROX training for me, running was obviously a big part of it, but in terms of like individual running sessions, I probably only do one sort of like longer, like zone 2 conversational piece run a week when I was training for HYROX. Probably about an hour to an hour and a half listening to a podcast, keeping it steady, just to basically keep my aerobic foundations as strong as possible. And then all my other running sessions were basically intervals built into the HYROX station sort of like workouts. So it could be like 2 minutes at your HYROX pace and then straight into 2 minutes of wall balls or 2 minutes of sled push, and sort of like alternating through an interval style workout there. So far more like high pace usually and worked in with other exercises.
Hmm.
Whereas now we're moving into more of like a marathon training block.
Sure,
It's
sure.
going to be more like intentional running pieces on their own multiple
Yeah.
times a week, pretty much, with the high rocks have taken a back seat.
So the type of training that you're going to move on to, I guess the strength training for HYROX really helps with that. I mean, it's not much that you might have to factor in as part of your 16 to 14 to 16 week plan for a marathon, I guess, because you've got the muscle memory there from all your training for HYROX. So I guess that really helps, right, for the marathon.
Yeah, 100%. So what I do now when I'm like, whereas my sessions are more like blended and merged for a high rocks, for a marathon, I basically split them up so it's more black and white. So there'll be a running session, and then the next day there'll be like a lower body strength session in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So I can train with intention
Yep.
on each different component, basically, to ensure that like my body is as robust as possible to get to the marathon, because that's part of the challenge itself with a hard training block, is actually getting there fit.
Yeah.
So yeah, just splitting my sessions a little bit more intentionally, so I can basically focus on them a bit more.
Yeah, no, good stuff, and all the best with how that goes. Because obviously, June. Let's see what temperature we get this summer. But yeah, obviously, kind of hoping and expecting that it's kind of not too mild, but not too hot at the same time for you. I would say, right?
Yeah, you don't want it absolutely boiling, but don't want it freezing either. It sounds like that 10K that you did earlier on in the year. A tough gig.
Yeah, I mean, they say it's winter 10K, but yeah, I didn't expect it to be like that crazy. George, so tell us a bit about yourself, including your background.
Yeah, so I've always been a sporty guy. I did as many different sports as I could when I was younger. I played cricket, rugby, football, tennis, swam, you name it. If there was a sport, I'd be doing it.
Mm.
But when it came to my sort of like running background, I was always in a fairly, I'd say, middle of the pack average runner. At school, I competed for the school in cross country from the age of like 10 to maybe like 15. I really enjoyed the like middle distance athletics. So kind of like 800-meter was kind of my jam.
Mm.
And yeah, always enjoyed that in school. But as I got to like the age of 17, 18, I started to sort of really focus in on rugby. And was basically lucky enough to get a professional rugby contract with England Sevens at the age of 18,
Oh wow.
and spent the best part of 2 years basically training and playing full time for them, which was great. And I absolutely loved it. It was my childhood dream, and have some amazing memories of what I achieved over those sort of like 2 years. But it was a very different type of fitness. The matches were 14 minutes long. It was extremely anaerobic, and short, intense bursts of exercise, but nothing too long and drawn out. So I wasn't really doing much sort of like longer distance running at all for a couple of years. And after a couple of injuries and COVID, I kind of found myself like reassessing a little bit.
Mhm.
And like you said at the start, kind of rediscovered running properly in COVID in 2020.
Mm.
And that's kind of where the journey began.
Yeah, just picking up on our like offline discussion and everything. And to be honest, that's where I kind of align with what you're saying in terms of starting on in the same time and with the short distances that you did, 2.5 to 5K.
Yeah, definitely. I still remember the pain of that first 2.5K around the block. It was boiling hot, and I was like, geez, am I really this unfit?
Yeah, yeah, true. You kind of, I mean, because we were probably like putting ourselves out there completely and
Mm.
not, there wasn't that controlled pace that we know about or understand about ourselves now. And at that point, we were probably just sprinting ahead, trying to just run, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So, George, obviously, starting from running in 2020 is one thing. I recognize and understand that journey quite a bit. Let's talk about this hybrid approach that you kind of are in favor of and something that we want to build up to today.
Yeah. So, I mean, you hear the words sort of like hybrid and hybrid athlete thrown across the UK fitness space quite a lot at the moment, don't you?
Mm.
It's an interesting one, but for me, it's always just been about, when it comes to my training, I find it really, really enjoyable to have massive variety. I don't like to just do one thing. So I've always loved my strength training. I've always loved to lift weights. I got really, really into like following the CrossFit scene back in the day, like in the mid 2010s, people like Rich Froning and Matt Fraser. I thought what they were doing was really, really cool. Enjoyed like the variety of like the rowing machine, the lifting, the swimming, obviously the running and all that sort of stuff. So kind of started to replicate that within my own training. And then obviously the running sort of like fell into place, like I've discussed there, from sort of like 2020 onwards. So for me, like my dream training week would always involve a couple of sessions in the gym with strength training, a couple of runs, and then sort of like a couple of like off feet conditioning sessions as well. Maybe if we're talking 6 training sessions a week, it'd be 2 of each. And that's just what I enjoy to do. It keeps me happy. It keeps me fulfilled and stimulated. And I think it does also build a very sort of like robust, long-term physique and engine as well. And then obviously depending on what event I've signed up to, whether it's a HYROX, whether it's like a CrossFit tournament or whether it's a running event, I'll just dial things up as needed in whatever sort of like facet of training I need to do so in order to really sort of like ensure that I do the best in that event coming up, basically. So yeah, that's kind of my approach and philosophy to training.
And how did that work with like starting and throwing yourself into HYROX to begin with?
Yeah, so I had to play around with my schedule a little bit. I actually, to be honest with you now, I didn't realize how heavy of a running event it actually was. I probably underestimated that, as everyone does. So what I basically worked towards was a schedule where I would probably do 4 conditioning sessions a week, and then probably 2 separate strength sessions a week. If I had more time or was feeling fresh, I'd bolt on 1 or 2 more sessions. But that was kind of the split that I did. And I found that training like that meant that I was still very, very fit, sort of like aerobically and anaerobically for my running as well.
Hmm.
So it worked out really nicely.
You mentioned there's a marathon you're going to start training for, which is the Windermere Marathon, right? Taking place in June. The only reason I'm going to bring that up again is, how does the plan reflect on the regular HYROX plan that you're used to? You don't need to worry about the strength training sessions as much. I mean, not saying that you don't have to have them as part of your plan, but will it require more time away to put into a plan, or would it be pretty much more or less the same?
Yeah, good question. So with this Windermere Marathon, what I'm doing is I'm approaching it like cautiously and strategically, because I was actually signed up for the Tallinn Marathon over in Eastern Europe in September 2025, and
Right.
pull out with an IT band injury because basically I went, as many runners do, I put myself on a program and I sort of like scaled up the volume and the pace like all a bit too quick and too soon. And ultimately left me injured and unable to compete. So what I'm doing this time around is I'm not going to dramatically increase the volume and the pace as quickly. So my program isn't going to change dramatically. I'm basically going to go for 1 longer distance run a week, progressively overloading that distance every week, looking at around my target marathon pace. Which would be about 4:55 per kilometer. And then I'm going to also factor in a shorter, quote unquote, speed session a week. So that could be like my local park run. It could be like an interval session around the track. So those are like my 2 sort of like hardish like running sessions. And then in order to keep myself like topped up when it comes to the conditioning, I'm going to do some more off-feet conditioning work as well. That could be like rowing machine, it could be like the Concept 2 bike, it could be the ski erg. So that will basically keep my, hopefully prevent my IT band from flaring up and making sure that I'm fresh for those runs. And then I can sort of like work in my lower body strength sessions around that to ensure that I'm as robust and bulletproof as possible, pretty much.
That sounds good. That sounds great. A few things you mentioned, the types of training that you will pick up. How does that help support you with those injuries at the same time too? I mean, just taking it easy, is that what you're planning to do?
Yeah, just being a little bit more sensible. Like, obviously, I'm sure I could be pushing it a little bit harder with my pacing. I could be pushing it a little bit harder with my volume. But my priority really is just making sure that I get to the start line and can do this marathon.
Yeah.
And then that can sort of be like my building block, my benchmark, so I can go and kick on to the next level, as and when the time's right. I just want to get there and enjoy it, and give a respect performance to myself, and hopefully this program will be like conducive to that.
There's been a few discussions that we've had in the past and a few questions that have been raised in terms of what type of plan do you work around? Do you like orchestrate and put your own plan together based on your experience so far?
Yeah, so I always build my own programs. I'm a qualified personal trainer, obviously used to be a professional athlete. I have a very strong sort of like strength and conditioning background. I actually really enjoy the challenge of building my own program, basically. It's probably, well, I know for a fact there are many, many better coaches than me out there that know more than what they're doing. But yeah, I just really enjoy sort of like seeing how my program makes me better and tweaking things where needed, just continuing to refine and become more and more effective pretty much. So yeah, I program it all myself, and I like to tailor it depending on what event I've got coming up pretty much.
Do you have like a team of people who you might lean on from time to time and kind of share not only experiences but also reflect on your plan, as in just to get like a bit of a validation, I would say, really? I mean, is that something that you've done previously or you do now?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important. So I've got a team of people that I sort of like trust and are way more knowledgeable than me, who I always like to tap up and chat to about thoughts on a training program and how to approach these things. Whether it's a HYROX or a marathon,
Yeah.
I've got people that are fitter than me, better than me, and more knowledgeable than me, who give me the advice before I sort of like write the program myself, and then it usually means that I know that it's going to be a pretty effective program.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you agree on that, George. So much experience out there, so many different people with different abilities, so many different backgrounds or experiences that they've gone through or are trying to turn things around for the better in their lives and stuff. It always helps to kind of have that person or that group of people to lean on, whether they be part of your regular run club, or whether they be like going to park runs, or regardless of what activities they're involved in. It really helps to kind of touch base with them on a regular basis and kind of share where things are going, and just kind of just giving yourself that reassurance that you're heading in the right direction.
100%, completely agree.
So tell us about Camp Kaizen, and what I'd love to hear about is the idea behind it.
Yeah, of course. So Camp Kaizen, basically, the idea for it started in 2022. Me and my brother were walking down Scafell Pike, the tallest mountain in England.
Mhm.
And basically we just finished, or we're just about to finish, one of our like semi-regular weekend training camps, as we called it. We both had corporate jobs. We're very early into our corporate careers, and we're living in London at the time, and liked to basically remove ourselves from the hustle and bustle and the pace of London life, with these training weekends, across the UK. And this weekend we were in the Lake District. We'd have a dip in the lake, we'd do a run around the lake, and we'd always do a hike as well. And on the way down in 2022, I turned to my brother and said, is this an experience which exists right now, and is this an experience which we think people would potentially buy into if it was like a formal ticketed training camp? And we both agreed that, geez, if this exists right now, then I would love to sign up to it and give it a go and meet some other like-minded people on these training camps. So did some research, and I couldn't see anything out there right now that was offering this. So basically I kind of like parked the idea and got my head down in my corporate job for a few years, which I, to be fair, I loved. I've got nothing bad to say about it at all. But we got to sort of like 2025, and I could see the UK fitness space just exploding. Basically, I was seeing HYROX everywhere. Parkrun attendance was going up. I'm seeing the Lake District and the Peak District all over Instagram and TikTok. People have got a great appreciation for the UK countryside and everything that it stands for. And I just felt that now was the time to go for it. So basically, I invited 40 people from my sort of like fitness network across the UK up to the Lake District. I'm very lucky to know quite a few people in that space and extremely grateful for that. So got 40 people up to the Lake District over 2 separate weekends in September 2025 and basically ran what I thought was, an initial program which they'd enjoy. And basically, to cut a long story short, Nads, everyone loved it. And off the back of that, we launched the brand Camp Kaizen, which is the UK's first and only ticketed hybrid training camp experience, which is all inclusive in our purpose-built camp at the foothills of Scarfell Pike. Basically, that's kind of the origin story.
Wow. Thinking about it first in 2022 and then kind of not exactly sitting on it, I'm sure you were working on the ins and outs.
I mean, I was probably at a stage in my life in 2022 where I just wasn't able to take that
Sure.
risk. Yeah, everything kind of lined up perfectly in 2025 for me to give it a go. And we got our site partner is really helpful. We sort of like lease out the land to build out our training camp on. So everything just really fell into place. And I think it was also like, Camp Kaizen, which we'll get into the ins and outs of it in a minute, but it's kind of just like a direct reflection or mirror image of my training philosophy, as we discussed before, like the variety, the fun, the mix and match of all the different exercises every single day. It's just an extension of what I believe to be the healthiest and most enjoyable way of training and living. So
What does it actually consist of? As in, like, what would someone expect going into this?
yeah, so first and foremost, like you buy your ticket, which is going to be anywhere between like £400 and £600, depending on which camp you go for. But you buy a ticket and then all you need to do is bring your kit and we'll basically provide the rest. So we provide all accommodation, which is like luxury glamping bell tents with raised permanent beds and bamboo matches for your recovery. We've got a really big, like 15-meter communal area with sofas, rugs, very, very comfortable space to relax in between sessions. We've got an on-site gym, which is available 24/7. And what a great novelty it is to have a fully equipped gym at the foothills of the tallest mountain.
Yeah, I'm just finding it hard to imagine about that, but it sounds amazing at the same time too. Yeah.
When the pictures come out, it's going to make things a lot easier, trust me. We've got a big campfire as well, and obviously we provide all the fuel, nutrition, meals to make sure that everyone is well equipped and energized to make the most of the training weekend. So that's kind of like then obviously showers, electricity, all that kind of stuff we've got as well. So that's the sort of the fundamentals in terms of what you actually get, and then the experience itself. So we've got like 15 staff who we can call upon for these camps, who will basically program and support all the camp attendees in all their sessions, basically. So they're all supported. And the schedule's pretty similar every day. So we always start the day with a short hike to like a local waterfall, and then a cold water dip, basically, because that doubles up as recovery and sort of like providing a really good energy boost to start the day. And it's great doing it with fellow camp attendees. So we start the day with a cold water dip, and then we hike back to the camp, and then a bit of breakfast, a bit of coffee if you fancy it, and then we do like a basically a road and trail run around Buttermere Lake, which we split into separate groups. So we've got like a faster group and then people that want to take it a little steadier. And that's going to be around one of the most beautiful lakes in the Lake District, anywhere between 7.5K to 14K, depending on how many loops you do. So that's the first session of the day. And then we basically come back for lunch, and then we do a team sort of like zone 2 style hike in the afternoon, which will take about anywhere from maybe like 1 to 3.5 hours. Get some amazing views of the Lake District, amazing views of the valley, and a good chance to sort of like really connect with your camp attendees around you as well, of which there'll be you and 19 others. And then get back to the camp, and before big evening meal, we like to do a bit of a team like off-feet conditioning session in our gym, just because it's a nice way to finish the day. It's optional, you don't have to do it, but for those who like to, it'll be about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, and it's usually team-based, so you partner up with a few other people, give it a go, and then nice big team meal in the evening, usually a big barbecue, pizza, whatever you want, and then hang around the campfire, relax, and do it all again the next day.
So I'm just going to ask you a quick question there, because you mentioned that, like, depending on someone's abilities, is it broken down by however someone might want to take it, or you're kind of expected to keep up with everyone else?
No, it's paced. So basically, I, as the founder of Camp Kaizen, I meet everyone before they sign up to a camp over Teams, and basically get an understanding for their fitness level, what they want to get out of the experience, where they want to get to, what their goals are with their running and stuff like that. And then when they get to the camp, I'll check in with them again. And in the morning of the run, we'll basically establish 2 different pacing groups.
Right.
So they can basically choose which one they want to go in. And the beautiful thing about it is because it's just an enclosed loop of the lake. It means that you can't get lost, basically.
You're keeping up regardless of which of the 2 groups you're in.
Yeah, exactly. And we can sort of have like runners, like supporting runners, like dotted around the lake to make sure that we've always got people on hand.
Not to mention, I guess, not just part of your team, but those who actually sign up and want to go ahead with the camp itself, they're always happy to help out. I mean, that's what the community really is quite great with doing, right? Everyone just keeps up and becomes part of the system itself to be able to make sure everyone's keeping up.
100%. Yeah, spot on.
Good to know. Further into that, like, who's the camp for?
Yes. So the camp basically is for anyone who invests in their health and fitness, basically. That's who it's for. So if you prioritize your health, fitness, and lifestyle as one of the most important things that underpins your life, then Camp Kaizen should be something that you seriously consider. Because basically what it is it's part lifestyle experience. It's part being able to go and experience one of the most beautiful locations in the UK in a stress and hassle-free way. Because like I say, all you need to pay for is your train ticket and your ticket to the camp, and we'll basically lay out the weekend for you. And you'll be able to really immerse yourself in the landscape, really immerse yourself in training, and just completely detach from the outside world for a couple of days. So it's part experience, but it's also obviously part training camp and fitness event too. So we definitely dissect the boundary of those 2 different areas, so to speak. So basically, if you feel like you want to level up your training, if you feel like you want to detach yourself and get away from the city for a few days and come back fresh, if you've got an event coming up and you want to push your training to that next level, then these are all the different reasons and whys as to why you might be interested in signing up to Camp Kaizen. And it's a difficult question. I mean, it's an easy question, but it's also a difficult question to answer that you said there, and that's because there's so many different people that are going to be interested in this experience, and there's no one motivation for why you would come on the camp, basically.
You shared quite well exactly what activities are included in there, and definitely some of those probably jump out, and there's similar experiences that people have already been a part of. So that's who you're hoping to offer them this way of being able to trial it. But I also see it's something that someone might actually want to put themselves through. I mean, relaxation is one part of it to take away, because it's actually broken down in a way that sounds like you get a bit of everything, really. So you're doing your it's almost like a training camp for HYROX, or if you're planning on putting yourself through something like that to begin with, right?
It's definitely a way that it can be used, and like obviously it's that the structure does come from the way that I have trained in my life as well, and our program is highly conducive to success and bettering your time in an event like HYROX for sure. Because we've obviously got the Zone 2 foundation stuff with the hikes and the steady runs. We've got the quicker stuff with our conditioning sessions and our trail run around the lake. And then we've also got, some of the strength training in there as well, and the recovery as well, which is really, really important. So you put that together, and it's a program to succeed in a hybrid fitness event for sure.
What should everyone's takeaway be from this?
There's a couple of different takeaways. I mean, from a pure fitness standpoint, you will come away from this weekend in a stronger place physically than you arrived. One step closer to succeeding or getting a PB. So that's the physical side of things. But probably more importantly is maybe spiritually and philosophically and mentally, you're gonna feel so much better coming out the back of it, having had a couple of days to completely relax your mind and detach from whatever stress you've got at work or at home. When you're in the Lake District and you're in amongst the mountains and you've got all that natural beauty and sense of perspective, it's just going to give you a great opportunity to hit the reset button and a newfound sense of perspective there.
That was great, George. It really sounds like quite an experience. Just kind of rerouting and kind of bringing this back to like your plans and goals. What makes you go again? And there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I think for me, Nads, it's about like, I know I'm really good. I'm 27, and I understand where my fulfillment in life comes from. Even on like on a granular level, day to day, like my day is a lot better if I've trained. Whether I've got an event coming up or not, I know I'm going to be a lot happier if the first thing I do in the morning is go for a run or do a weight session or do whatever it may be. So that, fitness and exercise are the building blocks and the foundations of a happy and fulfilled life for me. And it's not crazy, I'm not going out there doing ultra runs every day. It's just 1 hour of training or half an hour or whatever it may be. So on a granular level, I know that is what fills my cup, so to speak. But then on a sort of like more holistic, larger level, I really enjoy having a goal in the distance, whether that's a HYROX or a marathon or a half marathon. Having that additional goal to really anchor my training and hold me accountable is something that I really enjoy, and that helps to add variety and purpose to my training. So those are the two things. But then obviously when it comes to Camp Kaizen, I feel like now, I'm a bastion for this brand. Obviously Kaizen for me, I feel is a really, really important piece in like the UK fitness puzzle when it comes to legitimate hybrid fitness camp offerings, which are affordable and accessible for the everyday fitness population. So I also now have like the Camp Kaizen element as well, which is kind of like the cherry on top and kind of puts it all together really nicely.
This camp, which is taking place in April, one wave of it, which has already sold out, right?
Yeah. So our first hybrid camp on the 30th of April to the 3rd of May, that's sold out now, which is brilliant.
All the best for April going forward. But last and not least, what are the plans or goals 2026 and beyond for Camp Kaizen?
Yeah, so as I'm sure it's become apparent from the way I've spoken about it in this podcast, I have massive aspirations for Camp Kaizen. I feel like we legitimately exist in a market of one. There's no other brand or fitness company doing ticketed hybrid events like us out of a purpose-built training camp. So we definitely got movers advantage here. And the way I see us scaling are obviously to, first of all, beyond our camp offerings, to offer a hybrid fitness race, which combines a short trail run with our on-site gym equipment and all that sort of stuff, something completely unique that can bring more eyes on the brand and can add some healthy competition into our offering. So that's the first thing. I also feel like we can add more camp offerings next year and really strengthen our package in the Lake District. We're talking things like leveling up our camp setup and recovery setup, leveling up our service offerings and so on and so forth. But then beyond that, Nads, the really exciting thing for me is repeating what we're doing in the Lake District across different rural locations in the UK. So running a model where you do the Lake District camp one summer, and then you maybe move on to our Devon camp the next summer, or our Wales camp the summer after that, so to speak, and you kind of explore all the different locations as you go along. And the long-term goal is to have a regional presence as Camp Kaizen, as a Camp Kaizen training camp in every single notable UK rural location. And that's going to be the goal moving forward. It's very, very achievable given the start that we've had.
George, I'm going to say thank you once again for putting some time aside and coming forward, just understanding like your background, your journey that brought you all the way to the idea of Camp Kaizen, and obviously hoping that it goes all the way, and all the best for you in future.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nad. Well, I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm glad we could get together and yeah, even if we can, touch one person on their fitness journey and get them involved in Camp Kaizen in some capacity, that's going to be a massive win. So yeah,
Great.
brilliant.
Thanks all for joining us on another episode of Running 101. We look forward to touching base once again. So look after yourselves. Take care. Bye.